on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Chip Towers, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Chip, thank you. And enjoy that Little League game you're going to tonight, by the way, with your neighbor and his son or whoever's playing in that game. Your pinned tweet is, the drought is over as Georgia becomes a national champion back in January. How much does that maybe even make them more dangerous, because now it's not this, you're not consumed with it. They still want to keep winning. They want to keep winning titles, but now it kind of almost relaxes things a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that a little bit. I mean, I think the biggest deal is belief now, because for Georgia, anybody who knows anything about them, forever they've been talking about this is the year, I mean, legitimately, this is the year. It's probably, been the battle cry for at least 20 of the 41 years that Georgia didn't win the national championship. So getting across the finish line is validation. It's what Kirby Smart was hired for. It's why Mark Richt was fired after a 10-win season. It was the promise kind of that he made and that he knew how to do it and he was going to get them there, and they got there. So, that said, there's an NFL draft next week and you're going to see a lot of Georgia guys go very, very early. Most of them off of what people call a generational defense, certainly statistically one of the best in the modern era, certainly of the spread era of college football. So, there's some real work to get done between now and next season, but it sets up pretty well, and they ought to be in the conversation. They are already, really.
Well, Chip, they had a tackle in the transfer portal who took a visit and then came back. So things are going well for them. How are they able to rope Amarius Mims back in, even not being able to guarantee him that he's going to start, because it's one of the reasons he jumped in the portal in the first place?
Yeah, I only half jokingly say this, better NIL deal. I mean, who knows nowadays? But look, Amarius Mims now, 6'7", 330 pounds. I think he's listed at. He's a little bigger than that. It's kind of a good news, bad news situation. And the good news is that Georgia has. With his return, they have 19 offensive linemen on the roster, and listen, none of them were lightly regarded. when they signed out of school, I mean, they're all scholarship guys, and so Georgia wasn't bemoaning his loss terribly. Now, again, 6'7", 350, let's say. I mean, there's just not many people on the planet that grow like that, and he has all the other resident athleticism that you want to go with that. But, he's behind starters at left tackle and right tackle. And, they experimented with looking at him inside at guard. I don't think he was really interested in playing guard because he definitely projects as a tackle. And I'm sure Georgia told him like the whole time, hey, it's not over. Just because you're not the guy right now doesn't mean you're not going to be the guy. You may be eventually, but Georgia's got two good tackles in Broderick Jones at left tackle and Warren McClendon at right tackle, who have proven it on the field. So, it's just one of those things that Kirby Smart is having to manage right now.
19 O-linemen. That is insane. Like that's more than like some teams have skill guys like total across all positions. But Chip, Dan Lanning off to Oregon this offseason. Big opportunity there with the Ducks. Bulldogs stay in-house with co-DCs and Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp. Didn't have to look far for their replacements. How much do you expect to change and also just stay the same as far as that Georgia defense goes? And I know obviously they're having to replace a lot of talent.
Well, it'd almost be naive to say both, that it's going to change a lot or that it's going to stay exactly the same, because I really don't think either one is true. But, let's be clear, Kirby Smart is head coach, but he's kind of head coach / defensive coordinator. Right. So that's kind of his – he spends a lot of time every practice on that side of the ball. Will Muschamp, is out of the same limb of the tree as Kirby is in terms of coming through Saban, at LSU and and Kirby at Alabama, and they have a lot of the same philosophies. So I don't think a whole lot is going to change. But where I do think it's going to be different is just what we talked about before. Georgia's defensive line last year was unbelievably dominant, and that's being played out in the draft projections as we see right now. 4 guys in that draft coming off the defensive line, plus 3 linebackers who rotated. All of those guys are going to be drafted. So the guys are coming in. You may have to coach around a little bit more. You have to do a little more stuff. So I think they're going to look a little bit different. I don't think there's going to be quite as much rotation as there was last year because there's no way you can be as deep in talent. So some guys like Jalen Carter, who also projects well as the junior for next year, he's going to have to play a lot more than he did last year. Less situational, more 3 down.
Stetson Bennett was an incredible story. JT Daniels, of course, has transferred to West Virginia. The confidence in what he has brought now from just that ability to lead them to the national title.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of confidence. I mean, I think it's a big deal to have a 6th-year senior who led you to the mountaintop. Right now, it's amazing. There's not even a quarterback controversy here, and fans are still trying to make it one because, Stetson Bennett doesn't look like the other quarterbacks they have. He doesn't look like 6'5", 215-pound Carson Beck or 6'3", 230-pound Brock Vandegrift. Again, highly recruited guys that are waiting in the wings. And then they'll point to, they just had G-Day game this past weekend, and, Stetson goes like 15 for 35 or something like that. He had a couple of picks, got a couple of deflections at the line of scrimmage. He's too short. But, it's a inter-squad scrimmage that Georgia threw the ball 90 times between the two teams. That's not what they do. They run the football. It's play action. It's RPO. And Stetson does that at an exceptional level. He proved that last year. You take away the element of surprise from the defense, and, he's pretty easy to defend if he's going to throw it every down. I mean, Alabama showed that, in the second half of the SEC championship game. But when they have the run game running, and we talked about the O-line, and they have some good backs, that run game is going to be working, and he's going to be kind of pulling the levers again. I think that's a big deal for Georgia, and that's the reason I think that they'll be back in the SEC championship game.
Chip, what did you think of JT Daniels deciding to go link up with Neil Brown and Graham Harrell out there in Morgantown?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, when it was finally done. I wasn't following it to the level that I kind of caught that connection ahead of time. And look, JT Daniels leaves Athens, Georgia with a lot of friends and a lot of fans. Nobody feels bad about really what happened with JT Daniels here. I mean, there's certainly a segment of people that would have loved to have seen him do to Georgia's offense what they expected to do, which was to kind of go a little bit more aerial and spread and everything like you see at Alabama and a lot of other places these days. But, he couldn't stay healthy. That's what he's got to prove. He said that himself when he went to West Virginia. I got to prove I can stay healthy because he hasn't done that in the last 3 college seasons. He's been unable to get across the finish line completely healthy, and so he's got to be able to do that. But I think if he can, it's obviously a great match. They're going to know each other. They're going to know their skill set, and he's got to compete for that job up there. But, I'm guessing he looked at a lot of places over a long period of time. So I have a feeling he knows that he's going to be able to get plenty of playing time there, and he'll have an opportunity to prove himself, to West Virginia, to college football, but to the pro scout, probably most importantly.
Chip, I want to go back to something you just said about Stetson Bennett and the fans stressing out about him. He did something they hadn't done in over 40 years as the starting quarterback, and there are really good quarterbacks that have come through. Matthew Stafford just won a Super Bowl. David Green, people may forget, was the all-time winningest quarterback in the history of college football. Didn't win a national title. So that's the fan base now. Like, you once you taste that national championship, nothing is ever good enough, and you start to nitpick, and then there's half of them that have named their kids already after Stetson Bennett.
That's right, and there's a big divide there. It's just that, look, I got friends who've covered Alabama for a long time, and they warned me that, hey, it just, that people just get more critical and more cynical at this point. Once you've done it, they want to see you do it again, and they're critical of decisions that are made, regardless of your past successes. And that's what you guys really it's the fan site chat room people that are so critical of Stetson Bennett. Now, don't be fooled here. In the state of Georgia, when it comes to small towns from Blackshear in South Georgia, they threw him a parade. They're probably working on a statue as we speak. The guy will never pay for a drink or meal again in the state of Georgia. And, I know he's applied for law school. So, I mean, his future in this state, I don't know, Governor Bennett, Senator Bennett, he can probably do whatever he wants to do. So that's kind of where the divide is. But, the football lunatic fringe, I call it, they're very critical and say, Brock Vandegrift ought to be able to do everything Stetson Bennett. He's bigger, faster, stronger, but it's like, Stetson's been there. He's done it in the heat of battle. He couldn't get any more heated than he had after he gets sacked in the first half against Alabama and fumbles the ball, and they're looking up at a 2-score deficit. He's done it when it matters, and that's a big deal.
Chip, we had somebody on our chat room ask us about the Georgia football facilities upgrade as if they need to, but it's an arms race. You know that. I know that. They know that. Is that something they're going through now, or they've already finished?
No, they finished. I mean, what they're talking. I mean, Kirby Smart's timing and everything was perfect, and it was not. It was not happenstance. I mean, you don't fire a 10-2 coach without a plan, and they had a plan with Mark Richt. It was because Kirby Smart was available, and they had to go get him. At that point, a $31 million indoor practice facility was already online. They were already in the planning stages of a $63 million recruiting lounge and West End improvement at the stadium, which is pretty awesome. It's where recruits come during the games. And then they just cut the ribbon, and Kirby gets credit for this because he had a direct hand in raising a lot of money for it, an $80 million football operations facility. So, if you're doing the math, I mean, with other stuff as well, other improvements, other things like that, recruiting budget, Georgia's at $200 million investment in their program since Kirby Smart arrived. Now, you still got to go out and get 5 stars and 4 stars, and you still got to coach them up on Saturday. But he has definitely benefited from the facility's arms race. Georgia's winning right now.
Chip, thank you. Appreciate your time. Great stuff across the board. Chip Towers, Atlanta Journal-Constitution on Georgia football. There's